Hello beautiful people, and welcome to this lesson. So today we are going to talk about the common special learning disabilities, and they include dyslexia, dysgraphia and dyscalculia. Early identification and appropriate interventions are essential for improving learners' academic achievements, confidence and participation in school. So in an inclusive education, learners with special learning disabilities learn alongside their peers in regular classes while receiving appropriate support and accommodation. So teachers play a vital role in identifying learners' needs, adapting teaching methods, and using differentiated instructions, which we talked about, and providing individualized support to ensure that every learner has an equal opportunity to succeed. So welcome to this lesson, and I hope you have a pen and paper so that you can write the most important things that I'm going to talk about in this lesson. So what are the learning outcomes that we are supposed to have by the end of this lesson? By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define what a learning disability is, identify the characteristics of dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia while describing and explaining them, and differentiate the three learning disabilities and suggest teaching strategies for each disability. So what are learning disabilities? A learning disability, it is a neurological condition that affects the way a person receives, processes, stores, or expresses information. Learners with learning disabilities usually have normal or above average intelligence. Learners they learn differently from other learners and need appropriate teaching support, and they can succeed academically with the right intervention. So the key point here is a learning disability is not the same as an intellectual disability. So what are the characteristics of learning disabilities? We have most common characteristics, and these are where we include teachers, like teachers and parents. They play a vital role in identifying the learners' needs. So we will notice that learners have difficulty while reading, difficulty writing, difficulty understanding mathematics, poor memory for academic tasks, slow processing of information, difficulty organizing their work, and easily frustrated during learning. So right now, within this inclusive education, it has allowed us to understand that these difficulties are not that the child has a problem intellectually. No, it's not an intellectual disability. So in previously, we used to get beaten, we used to be told this child is stupid, but no, these are learning disabilities, and with the right interventions, we can improve learners' confidence and learners' learning. So the first learning disability that we are going to talk about is dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning disability that affects reading and language processing. So how a child is reading, or how the language processing. So learners may have difficulty reading words, spelling words, pronouncing words, recognizing letters, and reading fluently. So dyslexia, the lex in it, language, right? So dyslexia is a learning disability that affects reading and language processing. So, and this, what are the signs of dyslexia? A learner may read very slowly. You'll notice your learner, others are reading at a good pace, but this one is reading very slowly. She or he skips words, reverses the words, especially B and D, right? Then reverses letters and spells poorly, avoid reading aloud, mispronounce familiar words. So these are the signs of dyslexia. So once you see a child, like commonly when it's an English lesson and it's time for language or time for reading, you notice that this child avoids those kind of tasks. She or he has not that confidence in reading out loud, right? So these are the signs of dyslexia. So unless as teachers we notice this, the child will always think that he or she doesn't know how to read or something. So that is why we have to play that role of identifying how our learners read and participate in class. So what are the how do we teach learners with dyslexia? The teachers should use phonic instructions. Phonic instruction is to understand the relationship between the graphemes, those are the letters, and the phonemes, those are the sounds, and this enables learners to decode and encode right? So use phonic instructions, read instructions aloud, allow this kind of learners extra time, use audiobooks because you notice that they have a problem with reading, so use audiobooks. Encourage repeated reading so that as they continue reading, they get to understand and they get to decode and encode these. Then use large print materials and give positive encouragement, because the moment you give a negative encouragement or you not notice, then you just start by saying something that affects this learner, he or she will not laugh, she or he will not even participate in class. So we should give positive encouragement. Then the second learning disability that we are going to talk about is dysgraphia. So dysgraphia is a learning disability that affects writing skills and written expressions. So dyslexia affects reading, but now we have dysgraphia, graph. It's a disability that affects writing skills and written expressions. It affects the handwriting, the spelling, letter formation, and written organization. So I remember when I was in primary, our teachers used to really beat us because we couldn't have good handwriting. But with time, we made sure we had good handwriting. But some we could notice that they still had a problem with that. We didn't. So in that era, we didn't know what is dyslexia, what is dysgraphia. But at least right now, we can understand as teachers or as parents. We can understand when we see this in our kids. But now knowing what these are, we can give out the right interventions to help our learners. So it affects the handwriting, the spelling, letter formation, and written organization. So what are the signs of dysgraphia? Learners may write slowly, or maybe you give them a test or you give them an assessment of writing, a composition. Then you notice this child writes slowly. The child has very poor handwriting. So in our time, we used to be told that we're writing like hens or something, So they have poor handwriting. Leave an even space. Mix upper and lowercase letters. Hold the pencil awkwardly and avoid writing activities, and they tire quickly when writing. So a child with dysgraphia, this child tends to avoid writing activities so much. So that is why we should notice this and help these learners. So what are the teaching? How do we teach learners with dysgraphia? Teachers should allow typing. That is why we have digital literacy. That is why we have them now in our schools, so that they may help such kind of learners. We should allow them to type, give note outlines, not force or recommend or compel them to write, right? Then reduce copying, used lined paper, and allow extra time for these learners. Then we should also teach them to hold the pencil grip, and encourage short writing tasks to these learners. Then the third learning disability that we have is dyscalculia. So dyscalculia is a learning disability that affects understanding the numbers and mathematics. Like most of us, we had the problem with mathematics. Like me, till right now, I think I still have that problem. I think it's dyscalculia because I really had a hard time understanding maths. But now that I have a teacher who is able to teach me and guide me in the right way, I think right now I have the understanding of maths. So dyscalculia is a learning disability that affects the understanding of numbers and mathematics. So when you notice that your child is good at all other subjects, but when it comes to mathematics, he or she has a negative attitude. So we should know exactly what this is. Could it be dyscalculia, so that we can find the right interventions to help these learners. So these learners with the dyscalculia, they struggle with counting, number concepts, calculations, and mathematical reasoning. So don't always be in a hurry to make sure that this child should avoid his homework. Let us understand each and every learner. That is why we have CBE, which is centered on its learner-centered. So what are the signs of dyscalculia? Learners may count on fingers for simple sums. Like it's a simple sum, 4 plus 3, but the child still uses fingers 1, 2 to count the number. They confuse mathematical symbols, that is multiplication and addition. They tend to to confuse this. Then they forget multiplication tables, then have difficulty telling time, struggle with money calculation, and they reverse numbers. So these are signs that we have in our classes, and we should always have the insight so that we may notice them. Then the second learning disability that we are going to talk about is dysgraphia. So dysgraphia is a learning disability that affects writing skills and written expressions. So dyslexia affects reading, but now we have dysgraphia. It's a disability that affects writing skills and written expressions. It affects the handwriting, the spelling, letter formation, and written organization. So I remember when I was in primary, our teachers used to really beat us because we couldn't have good handwriting. But with time, we made sure we had good handwriting. But some, we could notice that they still had a problem with that. We didn't. So in that era, we didn't know what is dyslexia, what is dysgraphia. But at least right now. So let us have a comparison between dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. So when we look at dyslexia deals with reading, poor spelling, reading slowly, and language problems. So dyslexia, what we notice is all about reading language, right? Then dysgraphia, writing, poor handwriting, messy handwriting, and written expressions. Then we have dyscalculia, mathematics, difficulty calculating, difficulty understanding numbers, and number concepts. So what are the causes of these learning disabilities? Learning disabilities may result from genetic factors, right? Brain development differences, premature birth, brain injuries, or exposure to toxins before birth. So it is important to note that they are not caused by laziness or poor parenting. Most of us, we could think that this child is lazy, the parents don't know how to take care of their children. No, these are things that they have them, that it's not their own, it's like genetic factors. So it is us that we may be patient with these learners and help them so that they may adapt. Hello beautiful people, and welcome to this lesson. So today we are going to talk about the common special learning disabilities, and they include dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. Early identification and appropriate interventions are essential for improving learner. And the classroom strategies that we have, effective strategies include peer tutoring, cooperative learning, positive reinforcement, continuous assessment, individualized support, and flexible teaching methods. So in conclusion, learning disabilities, they affect specific academic skills. They do not affect intelligence. This is one thing that we should really note. They do not affect intelligence, and they require early identification, need appropriate interventions, and can be successfully managed through an inclusive education. So let us have these points taken so that whenever we experience or we have these problems with our children, with our learners, that we may always have the right interventions for them. I hope you enjoyed the lesson and have a blessed time. Thank you.